The figure stepped forward from the doorway. The fog inside the house thickened, curling in faint threads that rose like smoke. The lamplight flickered, stretching his shadow tall across the warped floorboards. He was not entirely clear. The fog clung to him, veiling his features, but his shape was solid. You saw the slope of his shoulders, the weight in his posture, the faint gleam of eyes that caught the light but gave nothing back. "The one who never left," you repeated softly. His head tilted slightly as though testing the sound of your voice. Then he spoke again. "You promised." The words pressed against you like a hand laid flat across your chest. Not violent, not angry, but heavy, undeniable. "I don't remember," you said. "I don't know what I promised." The figure moved closer. Each step groaned through the house, the boards shifting under his weight. He stopped only a few feet from you, the fog swirling between you like a veil. "You do," he said quietly. "You've only chosen not to remember." Your hand brushed instinctively against the ribbon at your wrist. It pulsed faintly, warm beneath your fingers, as though it too was listening. "What did I promise you?" you asked. The figure's voice lowered, each word drawn out. "You said you would return. You said you would not leave me here." And then he stopped. The silence stretched. The fog thickened. "And then I did leave," you whispered. The figure's eyes glimmered faintly in the dim light. "Yes." The jar on the shelf rattled again, the ribbon within twitching against the glass as though echoing his words. The house itself seemed to shift around you, its walls breathing in time with the fog. You swallowed hard. "If I left, why am I back now?" The figure's voice was steady, sir. "Because you were called, because the fog does not forget." You tried to speak again, but the words caught in your throat. The silence pressed in, heavy and endless, until the figure leaned closer. "You do not belong outside," he said. "You belong here with what you left." The ribbon at your wrist tightened suddenly, as though pulled by unseen hands. You gasped, clutching it, but it only pulsed harder. From somewhere deeper in the house, another voice rose, softer, higher, familiar. "Where are you?" The sound cut through you like a blade of memory. You turned toward the sound, but the hallway beyond the figure was swallowed in darkness. The figure's voice came again, quiet, insistent. "Go to them." You hesitated. "Who is it?" "You already know." The ribbon pulsed again. The jars rattled. The shelves trembled. The house seemed to lean inward, its very walls urging you toward the darkness. The figure stepped aside, gesturing with one hand toward the hall. His outline blurred into the fog until he was little more than shadow. "Go," he said. "They've been waiting." You stepped forward. The air grew colder with each pace. The fog curled around your ankles, then your waist, then your shoulders. The hallway stretched impossibly long, each step echoing faintly, though the floor beneath you seemed softer, like earth instead of wood. The voice called again. "Where are you?" Closer now, just ahead. You reached a door at the end of the hall. Its surface was cracked, its paint peeled away, but the handle gleamed faintly as though it had just been polished. Your hand shook as you reached for it. The ribbon pulsed once more, then grew still. You opened the door. Inside was a room drowned in fog. The walls were indistinct, the ceiling lost in shadow. A single chair sat in the center, and in the chair a shape. Someone sat waiting. They turned slowly as you entered, their features blurred, their outline half swallowed by mist. But you knew the voice before they spoke. You came back. The words struck you like a bell. Recognition rang through you, though you could not name them, could not place their face. But the weight of them, the shape of their voice, filled you with the ache of memory. Your chest tight. I don't know who you are." The figure leaned forward in the chair. Their face shifted through the fog, details half forming, half disappearing like a reflection disturbed by water. You knew me once. You said you would return. And now they raised a hand, pale and trembling. Now you have. The fog in the room stirred, whispering low. The walls pressed closer. The ribbon at your wrist pulsed faintly, then grew hot. The figure in the chair fixed their gaze on you, their face shifting between shadow and familiarity. You cannot leave again, they said. The door shut behind you, and the fog closed in. The room held its breath. The fog drifted in slow bands that crossed the floor like shallow streams. The chair stood at the center, and the figure on it watched you the way a candle watches an empty room, steady and unblinking. The door behind you had closed without a sound. Your palm still rested on the ribbon at your wrist. It felt warm, as if it had borrowed the heat of a living hand. You cannot leave again, the figure said. The voice was not cruel. It carried a weight that did not push, only settled. You stepped closer until the mist soaked your shoes and the outline of the figure was all you could see. The light in the room had no clear source. It was a soft gray that seemed to come from the fog itself. I do not know you, you said. I want to, but I do not. You knew me when the world was smaller, the figure answered. The road was a single line, and every hour could be held in two hands. You said a thing that became a promise. You left. The fog kept the place where you stood. It kept your voice. It kept me. You let the words rest between you. A drip sounded somewhere far off, slow and patient, as if the house held a well of its own. The chair creaked. The figure leaned forward. You saw only a suggestion of a face. Cheek, brow, the edge of a mouth, each softened by the haze. What did I say? You asked. You said you would return before the bell was silent, they answered. You said you would not let the door close. A bell. The memory stirred like something sleeping. You heard it faintly then. A clear note that belonged to a place with open air. It rang once and faded. Another note followed, the twin of the first. The sound came from within the walls, or from under the floor, or from your own chest. You could not tell. The bell is still ringing, the figure said. It is slow now, yet it has not stopped. You reached for the chair back and felt smooth wood worn by the passage of hands. Your voice thinned to a whisper. Tell me your name. I do not carry one here, they said. The fog holds too many names. It trades them like shells. If you give me one, I will keep it, but only while you remain. The fog climbed your legs and cooled your skin through the fabric. You stood very still. What happens if I sit? You asked. You will hear more than you wish, they said. You will also hear what you need. You lowered yourself into the second chair that had not been there a moment ago. It stood to the left of the first, near enough that your knees nearly touched the shadow of theirs. The wood accepted your weight with a soft sound. The air changed, warmer near the floor, cooler near your face. The bell sounded again. Farther this time, then nearer, as if distance in this place did not behave in an honest way. Listen, they said. You closed your eyes. At first there was only breath. Yours, theirs, the breath of the room. A low, steady rise and fall like the sound a lake makes when it thinks no one is listening. Then another sound entered, a page turning. Another, the soft thud of a book set on a table, the scrape of a chair leg across old boards, the faint click of a teacup on porcelain. Each sound was small, yet each carried a story, and the stories pressed against one another until the room felt full. Voices began. They came from the walls, from the floor, from the slow fog that now wrapped the chair legs. Some spoke in a rush that faded before meaning could be caught. Others spoke with care. One rose above the rest. A woman counted quietly to 3 and then said your name with the grace of someone who had practiced it in empty rooms. You opened your eyes. The figure watched you. She said my name, you whispered. She said it many times, the figure answered. She said it when the bell rang. She said it when the bell did not ring. She said it when she forgot to breathe and then remember. Who was she, you asked? The one who looked out the same window at the same hour each day, they said. The one who tied the first ribbon. The one who set the chair by the door so that the door would not forget what it was for. You felt the ribbon pulse as if it had heard its history spoken aloud. Is she here? You asked. She is where the fog is thinnest, they said. She does not like to close her eyes when the air is heavy. She will come when it lightens. The bell rang again. The sound trembled in the glass of the window you could not see. The figure rose. The fog folded around their legs and then parted as they moved. They reached toward the far wall. Their hand passed through the mist and found a cord that had not been there a moment ago. They pulled. A shade lifted. Daylight did not enter. The wall revealed a mirror. The glass held no reflection at first. Then it filled with a street that belonged to the town outside. The narrow one with the leaning lamps and the hidden doorways. The fountain appeared at the end. The water ran. The surface showed a face. Your face younger with a smile that did not know it would be forgotten. You stepped forward. The mirror cooled the air before you. The figure did not look at the glass. They watched you instead. Ask it what it wants, they said. You did not know how to speak to a reflection that was not yours yet had been. You tried anyway. What do you want? The face in the water did not move. The water did. Ripples spread from a point you could not see. The smile thinned. The eyes sharpened. Not to be set down, it said. Not to be put away like a jar on a shelf. The words landed as lightly as a moth. Their truth weighed more. I did not mean to set you down, you said. I meant to place you where I could find you again. You placed me where you would not look, the face answered. The bell sounded once more. It sounded closer now, almost behind you. The figure lifted a hand and the mirror went dark, not black, only empty, as if it had exhaled an image and could not take another breath yet. The chair waited for you to sit again. You did. Your fingers traced the grain. The figure stood beside you like a patient shadow. There is another room, they said. It has been waiting longer than this one. It breathes more deeply. It asks questions with no words. You will know its questions by the answers that come to your mouth. Where is it? You asked. Through the door that looks like a seam, they said. You searched the walls and saw only fog and pale wood. Then a line appeared, thin and straight, where stone met plaster. You pressed your palm to that line. The wall was warmer than your hand. The seam opened like a mouth that had been quiet for years and now wished to speak. You entered. The room beyond was small. The ceiling pressed low. Shelves crowded every wall. They held clocks of every size, tall, small, round, square. The glass faces had aged to a soft milk color. Hands moved on some, not on others. The sound in the room was the sound of time made into 1,000 quiet hearts. Tick, pause, tick. A second line, a third. Some clocks did not tick. They watched the ones that did and learned from them. You stepped between 2 shelves and stood in the middle. The clocks drew the fog toward themselves with each sound. It curled around their cases and settled at their feet like a patient animal. What does this room want? You asked. It wants you to learn its rhythm, the figure said. Then it wants you to give it yours. My rhythm, you said. The one you carry when you walk, they said. The one that loosens when you listen. The one that quickens when you try to leave. You closed your eyes again and listened for your own pace within the minute. At first you could not find it. The clocks filled the air. Then a pattern rose, not loud, only near. It matched the ribbon at your wrist. It matched the bell when the bell was far and when the bell was near. You breathed in. The breath met the sound and the sound shifted to meet the breath. Place your hand here, the figure said. You felt the cool, smooth face of a small clock that had not ticked since you entered. Your palm settled on the glass. The hand on the clock moved once. It moved again. The tick joined the others. It did not match them. It made a soft space between two of their sounds. The room accepted this gift. Its silence changed shape. What did I give it, you asked? A place to rest, the figure said. Your rhythm is a bench. The room sat down. Your mouth lifted at the corners. It felt like the first smile you had allowed yourself since the square. Is there a room that will take something from me, you asked? Not time, not rhythm. Something I am not ready to carry back. There is such a room, they said. There are many. You will know the right one when the fog becomes lighter in your lungs. It will not make you choose. It will stand with you until you do. The clocks quieted a little, not in volume, only in presence, as if they were willing to shift into the walls for a time so you could pass. You moved to the far shelf. Another seam waited there. You pressed your hand to it, the seam warm, the wall open. The new room was larger than the others. The ceiling lifted high. The fog thinned near the floor and thickened near the rafters. Coats hung from pegs along one wall. Wool, canvas, cotton, each with the memory of rain. The smell of wet fields. The smell of river water. The smell of smoke that has learned how to live in cloth. On a small table sat a bowl filled with river stones. Each stone had a single word written in careful ink. Leave, keep, soon. Wait, carry, set down. You touched the stone that read carry. It was smooth and cool. You set it in your pocket where the other stone had gone, the one that read begin. The weight of the two together felt right. Choose one more, the figure said. You picked up a stone that read wait and held it in your palm. The ink had faded, but the letters were clear. You did not place it in your pocket. You kept it in your hand the way a person keeps a key during a walk. The coats shifted once, a soft crowding that made the pegs creak. A sleeve brushed your shoulder like a hand that approves a choice. There is a door behind these, the figure said. Does it lead outside, you asked. It leads to a field that is not outside and not inside, they said. The bell can be heard there without walls to shape it. You may like the sound better in open air. You moved the coats with care. Behind them, a door stood half the size of the others, as if it expected a child or a very patient adult. You knelt and set your hand against it. The wood felt strong. It knew how to be a door. Will I return if I pass through, you asked. You will come back as you are able, the figure said. The town holds what it needs to hold. It does not close its hands. You looked back toward the room of clocks. Their sound had become a blanket. The ribbon warmed your wrist. The stone in your pocket rested like a small star. The stone in your hand lay quiet and sure. You opened the small door. Air moved across your face and into your lungs. It smelled like grass and cold water and the first thin smoke of a distant fire. The fog followed you out. It did not surge. It walked beside you at the height of your knees, like a careful animal that knows how to cross a fence. You stood in a field. The sky was the color of iron made soft by time. The ground bowed downward toward a thin stream that moved as if it had just learned the word for river. The bell rang. You could tell now that it rang from nowhere that could be pointed to with a hand. It rang from the space between your breath and the ground. Someone stood by the stream. You could not see them at first. The fog resisted your eyes the way water resists a hand. Then the outline became clear. A person, shoulders slight, head uncovered, hands cupped to catch water. They raised the water to their mouth, drank, and turned toward you. You knew them the way you know a room you lived in as a child. Your body knew before your mind could arrange the facts. Your throat tight. The world grew very quiet. They spoke your name. The sound was simple, no more complicated than a greeting at a gate. Your eyes filled without your permission. I waited, they said. You did not ask how long. You did not ask where. You crossed the field. The fog opened a narrow path for your feet and closed gently after you passed. When you came near, they did not step back. They did not step forward. They let you arrive. You stood within the space a person leaves when they are ready to be met. I left, you said. Yes, they answered. I am sorry, you said. Yes, they answered again. Not with forgiveness, not with blame, with the kind of agreement that makes the ground level. You opened your hand and showed them the stone that read wait. They smiled with a corner of the mouth, not as a performance, only as a sign that a small correct thing had occurred. Will you sit? They asked. You sat on the low bank. The stream spoke in a language that did not need letters. The bell sounded once and then did not sound for a long time and then sounded again. The fog lay down in the grass and looked at the sky. I heard the well, you said. I know, they answered. It has a way of being heard when you are almost ready to listen. I heard my voice, you said. You left it there, they answered. It kept working. It learned to speak without you. Can I take it back, you asked. Some voices do not want to be carried, they said. They want to be visited. They want to be recognized and then left where they have learned to live. You touched the ribbon. It pulsed in time with the small clock you had woken. The small clock ticked inside your memory. The sound belonged to a room that still stood and would continue to stand. Will you come with me to the square, you asked. The lantern burns. The reader keeps a chair by the window. The houses make rooms for questions. I will walk part of the way, they said. I will stop where the fog grows heavy. My breath is lighter there. You are here, the figure said. For a time, your companion answered. The figure looked at you. Their eyes carried a question that did not need to be spoken. Are you ready to decide what to carry and what to set down? You did not answer with a word. You touched the ribbon. You felt the stone in your pocket. You kept the empty hand open. You rose, they rose. The field did not change. The stream continued to learn the word that belonged to it. The bell waited. You placed the stone that read wait into their hand. They closed their fingers and did not put the stone in a pocket. They kept it as you had in the palm, a key for a door not yet seen. You began to walk. The fog led without hurry. The small door behind the coats was not there now. A taller door waited, and when you reached it, the house was ready to receive you. The figure from the chair stood in the threshold. Their outline seemed warmer, as if the open air had given them a color the room could not. They regarded your companion with a look that belonged to people who measure care without measuring time. The three of you stepped inside. The house changed in a way that had nothing to do with walls or floors. It accepted new breath. It accepted a shape that fit like a hand in a glove that had waited on a hook for a season. Far off in a room with clocks, one tick shifted to make space for another. Nearer, in a room with jars, a ribbon in cloudy water turned once and then lay still as if it had been seen and could now rest. The reader's voice came through the fog from somewhere down the hall. It did not call. It welcomed. Tea is ready. You moved toward the sound. The figure from the chair walked behind you. Your companion walked beside you. The fog rose in a slow tide that reached your knees and then receded as tea steam warmed the air. The bell did not sound. It did not need to. The house had other instruments today. You entered the kitchen. The table held 3 cups. The steam lifted like thin cloth and drifted toward the ceiling. The reader stood by the stove with his hands around the kettle. His eyes met yours and then moved to the ribbon and then to the hand that held no stone. "Sit," he said. "The town has time." You sat. Your companion sat. The figure did not sit. They stood by the door and watched as if to make certain the door remembered how to open. "When you are ready," the reader said, "we will go to the square. The well is quiet. It likes to be visited when the tea is fresh. It enjoys the smell even if it does not drink." You smiled despite yourself. The reader poured. The cups made a sound that the plate had made, a thin ring that tied the room to itself. You lifted the cup. The heat traveled through your fingers into your chest. Your companion closed their eyes. The fog learned the shape of a chair and sat on the floor as if it understood politeness. You drank. The warmth moved carefully as if carried by a person who knew how not to spill. The house eased. The clocks ticked. The bell held its breath. "When we finish," the reader said, "you may speak at the well. It will answer as wells do. It will echo what you give it. It will also keep safe what you leave. Decide what you wish to hear again. Decide what you wish only to set down." You looked at your companion. They nodded once, a small bow that affirmed your next breath. "I am ready to listen," you said. The teacup touched the table. The sound was very gentle. Outside, the fog shifted like a curtain before a stage. The square gathered its light. The lantern brightened, only a little, the way an eye brightens when a person enters a room. And the well waited. The tea lingered warm in your chest long after the cup was empty. The reader gathered the cups without hurry, moving like someone who had carried the weight of quiet rooms for a lifetime. Your companion still held the stone that read "wait." Their fingers curled around it as though it were a secret, though they had already shown it to you. The figure remained at the door, eyes on the fog beyond, posture fixed like a watchman who knew patience was heavier than any blade. The reader turned to you, his voice as calm as ever. "It is time," he said. "The well listens best when it has been made to wait." You rose. Your chair sighed softly, a release of air from old wood. The fog thickened again, brushing your legs like cloth. Your companion stood with you, their face half lit, the weight of years folding into their eyes. The figure stepped aside, holding the door as if it belonged to them. The square was waiting. The lantern's silver flame glowed brighter now, its halo cutting faint shapes into the fog. The well stood at the center as it always had, but it seemed different, not larger, not closer, only more certain, as if it had shifted while no one was watching. The reader walked ahead, his shoes clicking faintly against the stones. The sound carried, echoed, and folded back on itself until it seemed as though a dozen people walked with him. You and your companion followed. The figure did not. They lingered at the threshold, shadow caught between house and street. The fog pressed in around the square. It curled high along the roofs, coiled into the doorways, breathed across the windows. You could feel its weight in your lungs. It was not suffocating, only insistent. It wanted you to notice it, to remember it was there. When you reached the well, the reader placed one hand against the stone rim. His fingers were long, lined, strong despite their years. He looked at you, his gaze steady. "You may speak," he said, your throat tight. The ribbon on your wrist pulsed once, then again, steady as a second heartbeat. Your companion touched your elbow, a silent gesture that steadied you. You leaned over the well. The air that rose from it was damp, heavy, carrying with it the smell of earth and iron. The rope hung still, its frayed threads brushing faintly against stone. The darkness below yawned wide, swallowing the glow of the lantern. You drew in a breath. "I left," you whispered. Your voice trembled but did not break. "I did not return when I said I would." The words dropped into the well like stones. The silence that followed was vast. Then the echo rose. Your own voice came back to you, softer, thinner. "I left. I did not return." But there was something else beneath the echo, a second voice, low, familiar, waiting. "You said you would." The fog stirred, pressing closer to the well as though it too wanted to hear. Your hands gripped the stone rim. "I was afraid," you said. The echo returned at once. "I was afraid." The second voice rose again, steadier this time. "So was I," your chest tight. The memory came sharp, like light through a cracked window, a night of low fire, a face half-lit, words spoken quickly. "I'll come back. Don't be afraid." You had said them without believing them, and you had not returned. Tears stung your eyes. The ribbon at your wrist pulsed faster, burning faintly now. "I am sorry," you whispered. The echo fell back. "I am sorry." The second voice answered, quiet as falling ash. "I know." The well grew still. The fog hushed. Even the reader's breath seemed to pause. You leaned further, desperate now. "Can I fix it?" Silence. The echo returned, carrying your question back. "Can I fix it?" The second voice lingered longer this time. Then softly, "Not here." The fog shifted, restless, swirling higher. Whispers rose from every corner of the square, a chorus that filled your ears until your own thoughts were drowned. The voices spoke fragments of words you could not piece together. The reader placed a hand on your shoulder. His voice cut through the noise. "You have given the well your truth. That is enough for tonight." The fog recoiled, folding back from the well as though pushed by an unseen hand. The chorus silenced. Only the slow drip of water remained. You drew away from the rim, your chest heaving. Your companion's hand slipped into yours. Their palm was cool, steady. The reader nodded once. "The well will keep what you gave it. It will remember. And when you are ready, it will return something to you." You swallowed hard. "What?" He did not answer. His eyes moved to the lantern. The flame pulsed once, silver bright, then dimmed again. The fog coiled, restless. The reader's voice dropped, almost too soft to hear. "The fog has not finished with you." And with that, the bell rang, not far, not near, but everywhere at once. The sound carried through the square, through the houses, through your chest. And the fog leaned close to listen. The bell's sound clung to the square long after it had rung. It did not fade quickly, like the chime of iron struck by a hammer. It lingered, low and resonant, as if the stones of the square themselves had been hollow all along, and were now ringing with a note they had been waiting centuries to release. You stood at the edge of the well, your hand still pressed to the ribbon. Its warmth pulsed in time with the sound, each throb a reminder that you were not entirely your own here. The fog curled and swayed, breathing with the bell's rhythm. It gathered near the doorways of the houses, pressed against the windows, rose high along the walls and lowered again, like the tide of some invisible sea. Your companion stood close, still holding the stone that read "Wait." Their eyes followed the fog as though reading it, as though its movements were words. The reader, calm as always, watched the lantern. His posture was steady, but his shoulders carried a weight you had not noticed before, as though every word spoken to the well rested somewhere in his bones. The bell rang again. This time the sound was nearer, though it had no source. The ribbon burned faintly at your wrist and your breath hitched. You turned toward the reader, your voice low. "Where is it?" He did not answer. His gaze stayed on the lantern. The flame flickered once, twice, then steadied. The fog whispered, not the hushed chorus of before, not the jumble of voices pressing at your ears. This was a single whisper, thin and soft, curling through the air like a thread of smoke. "Come closer." You looked at the well. Its mouth was dark, its rope swaying gently though no breeze touched it. You stepped forward and the voice repeated, faint but insistent. "Closer." You leaned over the rim again. The darkness below shifted, faint ripples of movement deep in the black. For a moment you thought you saw faces again, pale and watching, but they dissolved before your eyes could catch them. "Do you hear it?" you whispered to your companion. They shook their head. Their hand tightened around the stone. "I only hear the bell." The reader stepped closer, his hand brushing the stone rim. "The well does not speak to everyone in the same way," he said softly. "It remembers differently for each of us. For some it whispers, for others it only echoes, for a few it sings." Your chest tightened. "Which one am I?" The reader's eyes lifted to yours, steady and unreadable. "We will find out." The bell rang again. This time it was sharp, clear, closer than before. The fog surged upward, climbing the walls, spilling over rooftops, swallowing the edges of the square until only you, your companion, the reader, and the well remained. The rest of the town vanished into a pale sea. The whisper rose again, urgent now. "Come down," you froze. The words seemed to slip beneath your skin into your bones. They carried no threat, only certainty. "Come down." The rope creaked. The bucket rose slowly, dripping, until it hovered just above the rim. You stepped back instinctively. The water inside was still dark, but it reflected something you could not explain. Not your face, not a stranger's. The reflection showed a door, wooden, cracked, painted the color of rust. Behind the door, a hand pressed faintly against the glass. You staggered back. "What is that?" The reader's hand gripped your shoulder. His fingers were firm, grounding. "Another room. Another memory. The fog is opening it to you." The bucket swayed. The reflection shifted. The door remained, but the hand pressed harder, now clearer, a palm splayed against the glass. You felt your own breath quicken, your pulse hammering against the ribbon. Your companion's voice cut through the silence. "Don't look too long." But you could not look away. The door in the reflection creaked, its frame trembling, though no sound reached your ears. The fog leaned closer, pressing against your arms, your neck, your ears. "Open it," the whisper breathed. Your mouth was dry. "How?" The bucket trembled, the rope groaned. The reflection wavered, the door pulling closer, closer, until it filled the water's surface. You reached out with one shaking hand. Your fingers brushed the rim of the bucket, and the door in the reflection shuddered open. The fog roared. It surged from the well, spilling upward in a wave, wrapping around your body, dragging you forward. Your companions shouted your name, their voice muffled as though through heavy cloth. The reader's grip tightened on your shoulder, but the pull was stronger. The world dissolved. You stumbled, falling forward into darkness. When you opened your eyes, you were standing in a hallway. The air was thick, humid, heavy with the smell of mold and rust. The walls stretched high, but they leaned inward, too close, pressing against you. The floorboards groaned beneath your feet. Ahead of you stood the door, the same one from the reflection. Its paint was cracked, peeling, the color of dried blood. The handprint still marked the glass. Fresh now, clear, you stepped closer. The fog coiled around the frame, pressing through cracks in the wood, curling across the floor. The handprint shifted. Fingers flexed. The palm slid slowly downward, leaving a smear across the glass. A voice rose faintly from behind the door. "Let me out," you froze. The voice was thin, ragged, but familiar. You knew it, your own voice. The sound came again, clearer. "Let me out." The fog pressed harder now, curling around your legs, pushing you closer to the door. The ribbon at your wrist burned. You raised your hand. Your palm hovered just inches from the wood. The door trembled, shuddering with each word. "Let me out." Your breath caught in your throat. And as your fingers brushed the surface, the bell rang again, this time inside the room, so loud the floor beneath you shivered. The door swung open, and the fog swallowed you whole. The fog rushed over you like a tide, pulling you through the doorway before you could brace yourself. The weight of it pressed against your chest, muffling your breath, filling your ears with a low hum that drowned out even the echo of the bell. You stumbled forward and caught yourself against the wall. The wood was damp, slick with condensation, its surface breathing faintly under your palm. You could feel it pulse, slow and steady, like the wall itself had a heartbeat. The door slammed shut behind you. You spun, reaching for the handle, but it was gone. The wood stretched smooth and seamless as if no door had ever been there. The fog thickened around your knees, swirling in restless patterns, never quite still. Somewhere ahead, a faint light flickered, dim and pale, like a lantern glimpsed through heavy smoke. The voice came again. "Let me out." It was your voice. The sound froze you where you stood. Hearing it in the reflection had been unsettling. Hearing it here echoing down the hall was worse. It was not an echo of your current voice. It was younger, sharper, a version of yourself you had almost forgotten. "Let me out," it repeated, more urgent now. Your throat tightened. You forced yourself to speak, though your own words sounded strange, out of place. "Where are you?" The fog stirred in response, curling tighter around your ankles, tugging you toward the light. You followed, step by step. The boards groaned beneath you. The walls pressed closer, bending inward, the ceiling lowering until the hallway felt like a throat narrowing around you. The light grew brighter, trembling, shifting, until you realized it was not a lantern at all. It was a crack in the wall, a seam of pale silver light leaking through. The fog slipped toward it like water toward a drain. You pressed your fingers to the seam. The wood was warm. It shuddered under your touch, and then, slowly, reluctantly, it split open. You stepped inside. The room beyond was wide and circular, its walls lost in fog. The ceiling arched high above, though you could not see where it ended. In the center of the room stood a mirror, tall, wide, its frame cracked and rotting, its glass dim with age. You froze. Your reflection stared back at you. It was you, but not now. Not the you standing in this moment, ribbon burning at your wrist. It was a younger self, just as the voice had been younger. Their eyes were bright, alive with something you had not carried in years. Their mouth curved in a faint smile, though their gaze held something harder, sharper. "Let me out," your reflection said. The words did not echo. They spoke them directly, lips moving, voice carrying into the room. You stepped closer, your heart hammering. "What are you?" The reflection tilted its head. "What you left." The fog stirred, whispering around the edges of the mirror. The glass rippled as though it were filled with water instead of silver. "I don't understand," you whispered. "Yes, you do." The reflection's eyes sharpened. They leaned forward, pressing their hand to the inside of the glass. You felt a shiver run through the ribbon at your wrist. "You promised you'd come back," they said. The words struck you like a blow. The memory rose again that night, the words spoken quickly, the promise you had never kept. "I was afraid," you said, your voice breaking. The reflection's smile twisted. So was I. But I stayed. The fog pressed closer now, curling around your legs, your waist, your throat. The mirror rippled harder, trembling in its frame. Let me out, your reflection said again, their voice sharper, urgent. You owe me. The ribbon at your wrist tightened, burning hot. Your hand lifted involuntarily, reaching toward the glass. The mirror shimmered beneath your touch, warm and alive like the surface of water. Your reflection's eyes met yours, and they whispered softer now, almost tender. If you open this, you won't come back the same. You froze. The fog roared. The mirror rippled. The ribbon pulsed like a second heartbeat, and the choice hung before you, heavy and waiting. The mirror rippled beneath your fingertips. The surface was not cold as you expected, but warm, feverishly warm, like skin touched after a restless sleep. Your reflection's hand pressed against the other side, palm to palm, separated only by that thin, trembling sheet of glass. Let me out, it whispered again. The sound echoed not in the air, but inside your skull, vibrating against your thoughts. The words repeated themselves in the chambers of your memory, pulling at fragments you had long ago hidden away. You tried to steady your breathing. The fog pressed higher now, curling around your chest, rising toward your throat. It carried a smell stronger than before, not just damp earth and iron, but something sharp, acrid, like smoke from a fire that had burned books instead of wood. Why should I? You asked. Your voice was thin, almost breaking. The reflection's smile faltered, its eyes narrowed. Because you left me here, because I kept everything you couldn't bear, the words you swallowed, the faces you turned from, the nights you promised to remember but forced yourself to forget. I carried them all for you. You shook your head, though the words struck deep. That's not true. I don't even know what you are. The reflection's voice sharpened, each word striking the air like a nail driven into wood. You know exactly what I am. I am what you left. The glass trembled harder now. Cracks spread from the edges of the frame like veins of ice crawling across a frozen pond. The fog stirred violently, twisting into coils that lashed against your legs, your arms, as if urging you to push through. The ribbon at your wrist pulsed so fiercely it hurt. You clutched at it with your free hand, but the knot only tightened, burning your skin. The reflection leaned closer until its face nearly pressed against the glass. You said you'd come back. You didn't, so I stayed. And now it's my turn. Its voice dropped lower, softer, almost pleading. Let me out. You staggered back, breath ragged, but the fog surged forward, pushing you closer again. The mirror loomed tall before you, its surface glowing faintly, rippling as though it could no longer contain what was trapped inside. Behind you, the bell rang again. The sound reverberated through the room, deep and thunderous, rattling the cracked frame of the mirror. The reflection's head snapped up, its eyes wide, its voice trembling. No, not yet. Don't let it decide for us. You froze. The bell, yes, your reflection hissed. It wants to keep me here. It wants you to go back empty. Don't listen. Listen to me. The fog howled, circling the mirror in violent spirals. The cracks in the glass deepened, spreading across the surface until the reflection fractured into shards of itself. One smiling, one crying, one screaming, all layered atop one another. You pressed both hands to your ears, but the sound of your own fractured voices filled the room anyway. You left. You forgot. You promised. You promised. You promised. Your knees buckled. You dropped to the floor, the fog closing in tight. The ribbon seared your wrist, so hot it felt as though it might burn into your skin forever. Through the storm of whispers and bell chimes and fog, the reader's voice cut faintly. Do not open it. You lifted your head. The reader's outline appeared at the edge of the room, blurred by the fog, his eyes bright in the dim. He stood with the lantern in his hand, its silver flame burning steadier than you had ever seen. "Step back," he called. "The mirror is not a door. It is a wound." Your reflection pressed harder against the glass, its eyes wild now. "Don't listen to him. He wasn't there. He didn't carry it. I did. I carried everything. You owe me." The fog surged again, lifting you to your feet, pressing you forward until your hand hovered just inches from the trembling glass. The reader's voice sharpened, louder though not unkind. "If you open it, you will not return. You will become what you see." The bell rang again, so loud the mirror shook in its frame. Shards of light split across the surface, fragments of your younger self screaming in silence. The ribbon at your wrist pulsed one final time, then loosened, slackening its knot. Your reflection's eyes fixed on the ribbon. Its voice dropped, soft and tender. "They gave that to me first, not you. It's mine. Give it back. Let me out." The choice pressed heavy on your chest. Step back. Obey the reader. Let the mirror remain closed, a wound unhealed but contained. Or press forward, touch the glass, break the boundary. Let your younger self, the weight of every broken promise, every unfinished word, step into the world again. The fog whispered louder, hungrier, curling around your arm, guiding your hand toward the mirror. The reader's lantern flared, pushing it back in waves of silver light. "Choose," the reader called. "Now," the mirror trembled. The cracks spread, and your reflection smiled. The mirror quaked in its frame, the cracks racing outward until the glass looked like a frozen web. Your reflection's face fractured across its surface, a dozen versions of you staring back. One smiling, one hollow-eyed, one crying, one furious, all layered atop each other in a mosaic of selves you had forgotten. The bell rang again. The sound rattled the air, sank into your bones, and the ribbon at your wrist flared with light. The knot loosened further, hanging slack now, the fabric quivering as if it too waited for your decision. The reader's lantern flared, its silver fire spilling across the fog. The mist recoiled, hissing, curling back like smoke caught in a sudden wind. The reader's voice carried through the haze, low but steady. "Step away," he said. "It is not yours to free." Your reflection's head snapped toward him, its fractured mouths twisting in fury. "Liar," it hissed, the sound echoing in dozens of tones. "You've kept me here because you cannot bear what I carry. You feed this place with silence, but silence is not enough." The reader lifted the lantern higher. "I keep nothing. The fog keeps. The well keeps. And you are what was left, not what was taken." The mirror trembled harder, fog spilling from the cracks like breath from a wound. Your reflection pressed both hands against the glass, its faces uniting into one for the briefest moment, your younger self, whole, eyes sharp, mouth curved in a trembling smile. "You said you'd come back," it whispered, voice breaking now. "I waited, I kept waiting, and you left me here, alone." Your knees weakened. The words struck deep, heavier than the bell, heavier than the fog. "I was afraid," you whispered. The reflection leaned closer, lips nearly touching the other side of the glass. "So was I, but I stayed. I stayed because you promised, and promises mean nothing if no one keeps them." The fog surged forward, wrapping around your arms, your chest, your throat. It did not choke, but it held, steady and insistent, pushing you toward the mirror. Your hand hovered just above the surface. The reader's lantern blazed brighter, burning through the fog in streaks of silver. His voice sharpened, strong now, his calm laced with warning. "If you break it, you will not remain yourself. You will let the wound bleed into you. You will carry what you cannot set down." The ribbon slipped from your wrist, the knot unraveling completely. The fabric fell, drifting in the fog, glowing faintly as it floated toward the mirror. Your reflection's hand darted out, catching it through the glass as though the boundary had already weakened. "This is mine," it whispered. "It was always mine. You only borrowed it." The mirror rippled violently, the cracks deepening. Silver light poured from the breaks, washing across the room. The fog screamed, a chorus of voices rising and falling in jagged waves. Your companion's voice cut through the noise. You hadn't realized they had followed, but now they stood at the edge of the room, their face pale, eyes fixed on the mirror. Their stone, the one that red weight, glowed faintly in their hand. "Don't," they said, their voice shaking. "Don't give it what it wants. If you do, it will not stop. It will ask for more. It will take more, until there is nothing left." Your reflection's eyes flicked toward your companion. Its smile widened, cruel now. "Of course they would say that. They don't understand. They didn't carry it. I did." The bell rang again. This time it was deafening, so loud the floor trembled, dust falling from the ceiling. The mirror shook violently, its frame splintering. Shards of glass broke loose, hovering in the fog like fragments of ice. Each shard carried a face, your face, screaming, whispering, laughing. The reader lifted the lantern higher, the silver flame blazing so bright it hurt to look at. His voice thundered. "Choose now, step back, or take it into yourself." The fog howled. Your reflection pressed forward, the ribbon clenched in its fist, eyes blazing with fury and longing. "Let me out," it screamed. Your chest heaved. Your heart pounded. Every breath felt heavy with fog, every step weighed with memory. You raised your hand. It hovered just inches from the mirror, the cracks blazing with silver light. Your companion stepped closer, holding the glowing stone high. "Please," they whispered. "Don't." The reader's lantern flared, his eyes locked on you. "Step back." Your reflection leaned closer, its mouth against the glass. "You promised." The bell rang again, and the mirror split wide open. The sound of the mirror parting was not a sharp break. It was a long, soft tear, like cloth that has already given way in the middle, and only now admits that it can no longer hold. The glass did not fall. It opened. Silver light poured from the seam and turned the fog pale, and your reflection's face gathered itself into one single expression. Not fury, not triumph. A look you understood without words. Relief. For a breath, the room seemed to hang between two answers. The reader held the lantern high. Your companion lifted the stone that read "wait." The figure by the door had not moved, yet the door looked wider around their shoulders, as if the frame itself leaned toward them for help. The bell sounded once, not loud, only perfectly clear, and the sound drew a circle around all of you as if to mark the exact shape of the moment. The mirror opened wider. Something took your hand. It felt like the interior of a current, not water with a surface, but the force that lives inside water. Your arm moved forward without effort or permission. Your palm met the warm, trembling glass. The ribbon floated in the light on the other side, caught in your younger hand. Your reflection raised it like an offering. "Come where I am," your reflection said. The voice was not pleading now. It was quiet and sure. "You left me here, so come and learn how I waited." The reader spoke, and the lantern flame lengthened as if to reach you. "You do not need to go," he said. "You can let what is left remain where it learned to live." Your companion stepped one pace closer. Their mouth formed your name the way a person shapes a word when they do not want to wake a sleeping child. They held the stone higher, and it answered by glowing softly, as if it had been placed under a lamp. You looked at the mirror. You looked at the people who had chosen to stand within this fog and keep watch. You looked at your own younger face, steady now, ribbon in hand, eyes bright with a life you remembered and did not remember. Your hand pressed firmer against the glass. The surface yielded like skin that does not wish to bruise. Warmth climbed your wrist. The room tilted, not in space but in purpose, and the weight of the tilt carried you forward. The lantern flared and the bell spoke once more. The sound placed a thin silver line across your chest as if to say, if you cross you may not return the same. You crossed. A soft rush like breath taken after a long-held pause, a change in taste, air that carried chalk and rain and the dust of old pictures. The glass closed behind you without a sound. You stood in a room that had the same shape as the one you left, yet it did not belong to the same house. The circle was wider. The ceiling curved high and vanished in a dark that had no weight. The fog here did not curl along the floor. It drifted from above in slow veils, then vanished before it reached the ground. The mirror stood behind you, its surface already still, silver and unreadable. Your younger self stood a few paces away. They held the ribbon in both hands like a small river they did not wish to spill. Up close, the youth in their face was more than a date across time. It was a way of standing, a forwardness in the bones, a readiness to say yes without rehearsing the cost. You felt the echo of that posture in your own body and understood why the mirror had felt like skin. The younger you looked at your hands first, then at your eyes, then at the floor as if respecting the gravity of someone who has arrived by a door that had been closed for too long. You came, they said. You nodded. I did. They lifted the ribbon. Do you remember when this was new? Only in pieces, you said. Show me. They placed the ribbon over your wrist, not tying it. The fabric rested like cool water, then warmed with your pulse. They did not release it. They kept one end between thumb and finger as if to say, the thread between us will not be lost again. The room changed with that simple touch. A second mirror moved at the far wall where there had been none a moment before. It did not reflect. It held a picture like an old window that remembers the scene it once opened onto. You smelled summer grass and heard a bell that had been rung by a friendly hand. A gate leaned open on one hinge. A dog ran. You felt the joy of someone who knows where everything is kept. Your younger self did not look up. Their attention stayed on your wrist, on the ribbon, on the quiet work of letting a thing be what it is without pulling. The picture in the glass moved as if driven by a wind that you could not feel. The gate closed. The dog lay down and rested its head on its paws. A small figure crossed the field and paused with a hand on the fence. The picture emptied itself of sound and then of color until only a faint outline remained. Why did you make me keep it? They asked. No anger, a question like a weather report. Why did you leave the part that was still warm? I could not carry it and move, you said. The truth surprised you with its simplicity. I thought if I set it down it would wait in a kind way. It waited in the way that waiting knows, the younger you said. It grew heavy. It asked to be noticed. It learned to speak in your voice because no one else would hold it. The ribbon turned a shade deeper. It did not tighten, but you felt the thread across the room between your palm and the second mirror. And now you understood the way the fog here fell from above. What was kept in this place did not rise. It descended like quiet rain. You took one step toward the second mirror. Your younger self did not resist. The ribbon slid, keeping contact, soft as breath on skin. "What is this place?" you asked. "The part of the town that looks the other way," they said. "What is left lives here until it is seen. Nothing here asks to be carried out. It only asks to be witnessed and named. It will not chase you. It will not call you back. It will wait the way stone waits, with patience that does not need time." The second mirror filled with a stairwell that had no steps, only landings that opened onto locked doors. On one landing, a pair of shoes waited, neatly placed side by side. On another, a cup rested on the floor, empty, with a ring of tea dried near the rim. The picture did not accuse. It listed what had been, the way a ledger lists what has been spent. "Can I speak to it?" you asked. "You can speak to yourself," they said. "You can set down the voice that kept asking and taught itself not to answer." You stood very still and let your body find the correct place for the words. The bell sounded faint in the distance, as if it knew that in this room something gentler than a command was required. "I left the stair because there were too many doors," you said. The picture made no reply, yet the air in the room changed the way a field changes when a cloud passes and lets the sun touch it. Your younger self lifted their eyes at last. They watched you speak, and they watched what the words did to your shoulders and to the line of your mouth and to the ribbon. "I left the shoes because I did not know where I would need to stand," you said. "I left the cup because I did not think I would be thirsty." You looked at the ribbon and then at the younger you. The next words were smaller and also larger. "I did not think about you." They nodded once, as if to say, "Now we have placed the right stone." "When you do not think about me," they said, "I grow loud so that you will remember. When I grow loud, you try to quiet me with tasks that do not belong to me. So I learned to ring the bell. The bell in this room answered like a person who hears their name spoken tenderly in a place where it has not been spoken in a long time. It did not try to be heard. It tried to be true. From the wall to your left, a third mirror opened. The frame was crooked, and a small crack ran from one corner toward the center, then stopped as if it had changed its mind. In that glass, a kitchen appeared. Not the reader's kitchen, but a place with sunlight on a table and a jar of honey beside a loaf of bread. A hand reached into the picture and broke the bread and then pulled back, leaving a warm crumb trail that looked like punctuation marks across the wood. The younger you spoke very softly. "This is where we promised to return before the bell went silent." The promise ached in your chest like a healed bone in cold weather. "Are you angry with me?" you asked. "I am tired," they said. "I am the part that stood at the fence and watched the road long after the dog had gone inside. I am the part that kept the light in the window even when there was no more oil. I am the part that did not finish the cup because I was listening to the sound of a door that did not close." They placed the ribbon fully around your wrist and tied a single simple knot. Not tight, not loose, a promise written in thread. "I do not want to enter your life and walk in front of you," they said. "I want to be walked with. I want you to stand where I stood once in a while and see what I saw. That is all." You turned from the mirror and looked at them fully. The fog above seemed to thin, and for the first time you saw the far edge of the ceiling. It held small windows like eyelids just open to morning. The light they shared was not sunlight. It was the glow of things that have been understood. You reached out your hand. They took it. Their palm was cooler than yours, and you felt your own heat move into their skin as a kind of good work. "Will you come with me?" you asked. "Not as someone who speaks for me. As someone who stands beside me." "I will walk to the door," they said. "I will place my hand upon the glass. I will not step through. I will remain here. If you return, I will be where you can find me." If you do not, I will not call you, but I will listen for the bell. You nodded. A small, simple, grateful nod, the kind that binds without binding. Together you faced the mirror you first passed through. Its surface had lost the restless shimmer. It held the faintest suggestion of the room you had left, a hint of lantern flame, the outline of a figure standing with a watchman's patience, the shape of your companion's hand lifted stone aglow. Will I be able to step back? You asked. Yes, the younger you said. You brought the ribbon with you. Things that are given freely can be carried both directions. What about what I still owe? You asked. What about the promise? The promise lives here now, they said. It keeps a chair by the window and a light in the jar. It is not a thing to be paid. It is a thing to be visited. When you come, it will show you what has ripened. When you cannot come, it will tend itself. You breathed and realized you had been holding a measure of breath for years. The release was not dramatic. It was a small straightening of the spine, a loosening at the base of the throat, a space where a picture could be placed without falling. Will you say my name the way she did? You asked, and you did not specify who she was. You did not need to. Your younger self said your name. It sounded unchanged. It sounded like a person who can walk both forward and back with equal grace. You placed your palm on the mirror. They placed theirs opposite. The glass warmed again and gave way. The ribbon knot did not slip. It tightened just enough to say, we agreed. The room shifted. The fog above gathered and folded and drew itself into a thin veil that floated toward the ceiling windows and disappeared. The second mirror softened its picture until it became a pale square. The third mirror closed its crack. The field of your memory felt less like a border and more like a place where you could sit. You stepped through. The sound of the reader's lantern flame returned first. It is strange how a light can make a sound. The quiet lick of it, the patient breathing of it. Then the smell of the town's fog reached you, with its iron and stone and river scent. Your feet knew the floorboards. Your body recognized the weight of this air. You stood again in the circle room on the side you had left. The mirror behind you was a mirror once more. It reflected, but it did not hold a picture. Your younger self stood on the other side, a little further back, already part of that room again. They raised a hand with the smallest curve of a smile. You raised yours. The glass stayed cool under your palm. They stayed. You stayed. Your companion reached you first. Their hand found your arm, steady, careful. The stone that red weight had dimmed, satisfied like a candle after a prayer. The reader lowered the lantern. His face had shed a measure of strain. The figure by the door looked smaller, or perhaps the door had resumed its usual shape now that the room had given back what it held. The bell sounded far away. It sounded like it had been given a place to rest. What did you bring? The reader asked. The question was gentle. It had no demand hidden within it. A way to visit what I left without letting it live in my mouth, you said. A thread that will not break when I walk away. A room where promises keep their own company, the reader nodded. Then the well will be glad to hear you again. Will it sing? You asked, because he had said earlier that for a few the well does not whisper, it sings. It will do what you need, he said. That may be a song. That may be silence. The fog in the doorway moved like someone drawing a curtain back from a stage that is about to show a scene. The square was ready. The lantern there had refined its light to a steady silver. It did not flare now. It did not urge. It kept. Your companion looked at the ribbon, at the simple knot. at the way it lay on your wrist like a line on a map that has been made bold enough to see without squinting. "Walk with me," they said. You stepped into the hall with them. The room let you go without needing to be thanked. The door followed you with its friendly wood sound. The figure fell in behind, not because they needed to guard you, but because this is what some people choose to do when they know a place and wish for others to cross it safely. The square greeted you with the composure of a host who has learned that the very best welcome is to provide a chair and a clean cup. The well looked unchanged and yet kinder. The rope did not sway. The stone did not sweat with the fever of wanting. It held cool and firm. You placed your hands on the rim and looked down. The dark did not feel like something that could drown a person. It felt like the inside of a closed eye. "I left," you said, and you did not need to say that again. The words went down as light as a petal. "I returned," you said, and the well did not echo. It accepted. "I will visit," you said, and the bell answered once. A note with no edge. A note that does not require applause. Your companion stood with the stone in their open hand. The reader stood with the lantern at his side instead of high in the air. The figure looked up at the roofs where the fog had pulled back to reveal the shapes of chimneys and signs and the quiet witness of windows. From the street where the fountain lived, a thin ribbon of water sound reached the square. The chairs in the room of chairs shifted, as if making space for a guest who has come back by choice. The kitchen, where the bread cooled, remembered the crackle of crust, and let that small music play once more in its own corner. The clock that you woke ticked into a new hour with the confidence of a heart that has been given a pace it can keep without effort. You breathed. You did not push the breath out. You simply let it leave. The fog rose around your knees and then let you be taller. The lantern brightened and did not dim. "Tea," the reader said, because the town speaks in cycles and each good passage repeats with a little more clarity. "In a moment," you answered. "I would like to stand here and listen to how quiet sounds when it is full." So you did. The square kept you. The well kept what it had kept before, but now it kept it without strain. The bell waited until the waiting felt correct, then spoke once more in a tone you could feel in your throat. Your younger self stood in their room and placed a hand upon a pane of glass that no longer pretended to be a door. They did not call. They did not wave. They stayed where you could find them, and that was enough. The town did what the town does. It made a place for what is carried and a place for what is set down. It allowed people to arrive and to return and to sit and to go. It listened. It did not interrupt. And somewhere, past the fountain and the narrow street and the alley with the blue flame, a door that had been waiting for a different person began to open, very slowly, because the town had understood that there is always another promised learning how to speak. You heard it, not as a demand, as a welcome. The fog drew a gentle line across the stones at your feet as if to mark where you stood, to say, "This is a place someone returned to and will return to again." You did not move. You did not end anything. You rested inside what had widened, and the well, pleased with the arrangement, kept its depth without asking for more. The square rested with you. The lantern's silver flame swayed gently in its cage, neither urging nor resisting. The well stood quiet, its rope still, its stone rim cool beneath your fingertips. The fog that once pressed sharp against your lungs now drifted softer, low to the ground, curling lazily around the cobblestones like a cat dozing after its meal. Your companion sat on the edge of the well, the stone, that red weight turning slowly in their palm. The reader had set his lantern on the ground beside him, its flame steady, his gaze fixed on nothing in particular, as though listening to the silence itself. The figure leaned against the nearest house, arms folded, eyes on the rooftops, watchful but calm. For the first time since arriving, the town did not press upon you. It did not whisper, it did not call, it did not demand. It allowed you to breathe. And yet the bell sounded again. This time the note was softer than before, almost uncertain, like a hand knocking once on a door and then pausing to listen. It did not come from the well, nor the houses, nor the sky above. It came from somewhere beyond the square, distant but near enough to be felt in your ribs. The reader lifted his head. His eyes met yours. "You hear it," he said. You nodded. "Another promise," he murmured. His voice was neither surprised nor weary. It carried only the weight of knowing that the town is never still for long. Your companion looked up from the stone. "Does it always call so soon?" The reader shook his head. "Not always, but sometimes the fog remembers in clusters. One arrival wakes another." The bell rang again, louder now. The fog stirred, restless once more, rising from the cobblestones, sliding higher along the walls of the square. The lantern's flame flickered. The well shivered faintly, a drop of water falling from its rope into the dark below. The figure pushed off from the wall, their voice low. "It comes from the eastern street." You turned. Until now, you had not noticed the street beyond the square, narrow and crooked, half hidden by shadows. Its stones looked older, cracked and uneven, moss growing between them in dark lines. The houses there leaned close to one another, their roofs nearly touching overhead, forming a tunnel of wood and stone. The fog pressed toward it, spilling into the gap like water seeking a drain. The bell rang a third time. Your companion's hand tightened around the stone. "Should we follow?" The reader rose slowly, lifting the lantern from the ground. Its silver light brightened, casting long shadows across the square. He looked at you. "You should," he said. "It is your call to answer, but do not expect it to be the same as before. Every promise is different." Your throat tightened. You looked at the eastern street. The fog swirled thick within it, so dense it seemed almost solid. "What waits there?" you asked. The reader's gaze held yours. "What you left in silence." The words settled in your chest like stones. You stepped forward. The fog thickened with each pace, swallowing the square behind you until even the glow of the lantern dimmed. Your companion walked close, their hand brushing yours, the stone in their grip glowing faintly as though warmed by your nearness. The reader's lantern followed behind, its flame steady, casting pale silver across the stones. The figure brought up the rear, silent, their footsteps measured. The eastern street narrowed quickly. The houses leaned inward, their timbers groaning softly as though alive. Shutters creaked open as you passed, though no hands moved them. Behind the glass, you glimpsed shapes faint, blurred, watching. Their faces dissolved when you tried to hold them in your gaze. The bell rang again. The sound came from ahead, deeper into the street, vibrating through the wood and stone, rattling shutters, shaking moss loose from the cracks. The fog stirred violently, pressing against you, trying to quicken your steps. You resisted, moving slowly, careful with each pace. The stones beneath your feet felt uneven, shifting faintly as though they remembered too many footsteps. Your companion whispered, "Do you feel it?" "Yes," you said. "It's stronger here." The reader's lantern flared, illuminating the end of the street. A door stood there, tall and crooked, its frame warped, its paint peeled to bare wood. Unlike the others, it had no handle, no knocker, no latch. Only a bell rope hung from its center, frayed and darkened with age. The fog pressed hard against you now, swirling in frantic circles around your legs, your waist, your chest. The bell within the door tolled once more, so loud you felt it in your teeth. The reader lifted his lantern higher. His voice carried steady through the fog. Here is where it waits. The figure stepped closer, their voice low. Do not pull the rope unless you mean to enter. Your companion looked at you, their eyes wide, the stone glowing bright in their hand. What if you do? The reader's gaze lingered on the door. Then it will keep ringing, quieter, slower, until you cannot rest for hearing it. The fog swirled tighter. The bell rang again. Your ribbon pulsed faintly, the knot glowing in rhythm with the sound. And the door waited. The rope hung heavy before you, dark with damp, frayed at its end as though countless hands had once pulled it, each leaving a piece of themselves behind. The wood of the crooked door was swollen, bowed outward, scarred with cracks that looked too much like veins beneath old skin. The bell tolled once more, not a sharp clang, but a deep hollow note that seemed to rise from the marrow of the town itself. It throbbed through your chest, sank into your stomach, rattled your ribs. The fog shuddered at the sound, curling upward in columns that twisted like slow smoke, gathering against the roof beams above before vanishing into shadow. The reader raised his lantern. Its silver flame flickered, fragile in the wake of the bell. His eyes were steady, but his mouth was drawn thin. Do not mistake it for an invitation, he said. It does not ask. It demands. Your companion touched your arm, the stone in their hand glowing brighter than before, casting faint golden light through the fog. You don't have to, they whispered. Not yet. The figure stepped closer, their shadow long in the lantern's light. Their voice was low, even steady. If you touch it, you must enter. No one touches the rope without stepping through. That is the way of this door. You stared at the frayed cord. Each strand seemed to writhe faintly, as though alive, twitching with the rhythm of the bell. Your hand ached to lift, though you had not yet willed it. The ribbon at your wrist pulsed once, as if warning or reminding you of what had already passed. Why does it call? You asked. The reader's lantern wavered, his face half lit. Because something waits behind it, something you set down long ago, something that learned to ring when you would not answer. The bell tolled again. This time softer, but no less heavy. The sound made the air thick, difficult to breathe, as though every inhale carried weight. Your companion clutched the stone tighter, their knuckles pale. If it is yours, then maybe it should stay yours. Not everything left behind needs to be brought back. The reader's gaze flicked toward them, then returned to you. His silence was an answer of its own. The fog pressed closer, swirling in restless circles. Its whispers rose faintly now, not the hungry chorus of the well, nor the fractured echoes of the mirror. These whispers were different, patient, repeating the same word again and again in voices low and endless. Open, 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 you reached for the rope. Your fingers brushed its damp strands. The bell inside the door tolled sharply, a note that cracked through the air like thunder. The fog recoiled, then surged forward all at once, pressing against you, urging you through. The reader's voice rang out, louder than you had ever heard. Wait! You froze, your hand still on the rope. His eyes locked on yours, the lantern raised high. The silver flame swelled, casting a halo of light that pushed the fog back an arm's length. His voice carried weight. If you open it now, you will enter unprepared. You must know that. Your throat was dry. Prepared for what? The reader's gaze did not waver. Prepared to find not what you left, but what grew from it. The fog hushed as though listening. Your companion's hand brushed yours, trembling. Then maybe you shouldn't. The figure shook their head once. It will keep ringing, louder, quieter, but always. You will not silence it by walking away. The The rope twitched beneath your fingers, impatient now. The bell tolled again, the note longer this time, stretched until the sound felt like it bent the very air. The door shuddered. Cracks spread wider across its surface. A faint glow leaked from within, pale, sickly, like moonlight caught in stagnant water. Your heart hammered. The ribbon pulsed. You pulled the rope. The bell screamed. The sound filled every hollow of the street, rattled the shutters, shook the roofs. The houses groaned, their beams straining as though the very town winced beneath the weight of the noise. The rope snapped upward, striking the wood above, and the crooked door split wide. The fog rushed forward in a torrent, dragging you with it, sweeping your companion, the reader, even the figure into its current. The lantern flared. Its silver flame stretched long as a blade before vanishing into the pale glow. The stone in your companion's hand burned hot in their grip, its word unreadable now. You stumbled across the threshold. The door slammed behind you. The room beyond was vast, larger than the square, larger than the town. You could not see its walls or its ceiling. Fog hung in thick curtains, drifting in slow currents, parting just enough to reveal fragments of what lay inside. Rows of chairs stretched outward, endless, each facing the same way. Some stood upright, others toppled. Some were broken, splintered, their legs snapped. All of them were filled. Figures sat in the chairs, countless, silent, unmoving. Their shapes blurred by the fog, their heads bowed, their hands folded in their laps. None lifted their faces. None stirred. The bell tolled again. Every figure raised their head at once, and they all looked at you. The silence in the vast room was thick enough to touch. The fog curled low across the floor, weaving around the legs of the endless rows of chairs. Each one was occupied, each figure seated, hands folded neatly in their laps. The bell's toll had lifted every head, and now 1,000 faces turned in unison to look at you. Your chest tight. Their eyes, if they were eyes, glimmered faintly, pale and indistinct, blurred by the mist. You could not read them, could not find expression there. Only the weight of their collective gaze pressed down upon you, heavy as stone. Your companion gasped beside you. The stone in their palm glowed faintly, flickering as though it were struggling to stay lit. "They're waiting," they whispered. The reader's lantern burned brighter, silver light spilling across the fog, though it seemed only to make the shadows deeper between the rows. His voice was low, steady, though even he sounded strained. "Do not move too quickly. They are not enemies, they are witnesses." "Witnesses of what?" you asked. The figure at the rear of your group answered, their tone flat, certain. "Of what was left." The bell tolled again. This time the sound was softer, but it carried further, echoing through the cavernous space until it seemed to come from every direction at once. The seated figures shifted, their hands loosened, sliding slowly from their laps, their heads tilted. And then, one by one, they began to rise. The scrape of chair legs filled the air, a sound so sharp against the silence it made your teeth ache. Rows upon rows stood, their movements slow, deliberate, each motion in perfect rhythm with the others. Your companion clutched your arm. "Don't let them come closer." But the reader shook his head. "They must. This is what the bell summons." The lantern's flame flickered violently as though resisting. You stepped back, but the fog pressed hard against your shoulders, urging you forward instead. Your ribbon pulsed. The knot throbbed in rhythm with the bell. The first row of figures stepped into the lantern's light. Their faces blurred, indistinct yet familiar. Not strangers, not entirely. You recognized fragments. A tilt of a jaw, a curve of a mouth, the shape of an eye. Pieces of faces you once knew, scattered across the sea of figures as though the fog had taken every unfinished memory, every person you had half forgotten, and seated them here. One figure stopped before you, their head lifted slowly. The face was yours. You staggered back, breath caught in your throat. The figure was not a reflection, not like the mirror. It was not younger, nor older, nor fractured. It was you as you might have been if you had stayed. Their eyes met yours, steady, patient, filled with a quiet you could not bear. They spoke. Their voice was calm, even identical to yours. You left us here. Your companion's grip on your arm tightened. Don't answer it. But the reader shook his head. His gaze was fixed on the figure. You must. The bell tolled again. The sound shook the air. More figures stepped forward, filling the fog, their indistinct faces shimmering with fragments of memory, each one echoing something you once said, something you once left behind. You promised. You said you would return. You told me to wait. The voices overlapped, not shouted, not angry, but heavy, undeniable. You fell to your knees, clutching your chest. The ribbon burned against your skin, searing now. I can't carry all of you, you whispered. The first figure, the one that wore your face, leaned closer. Their eyes were unblinking, steady. Then don't, only listen. The room hushed. The fog stilled. The sea of figures froze, silent, waiting. Your companion crouched beside you, their voice trembling. You don't have to listen. You don't owe them. The reader stepped forward, his lantern lifted high. The silver flame flared, casting light across the endless rows. Yes, he said, his voice ringing like iron struck against stone. You do. The bell tolled once more. The figures spoke in unison, a single voice carried by 1,000 throats. Tell us why. Your chest heaved. Your hands trembled. The ribbon pulsed like a second heart. The fog pressed tighter. The reader's lantern swayed. The stone in your companion's hand flickered weakly. The figure at the rear stepped closer, their shadow long across the floor. And the demand hung in the air, heavy, inescapable. Tell us why you left. Silence held after the demand. It was the kind of silence that changes the shape of a room. The fog no longer drifted. It lay still across the floor like a pale sheet, its edge folded against your knees. 1,000 faces waited. The one that wore your face stood nearest, eyes steady, hands at its sides as if they had already chosen to forgive or to refuse, and would decide which once they heard the truth. You tried to breathe. Your chest rose and fell without ease. Your tongue felt heavy, as if words were stones and your mouth a river that had not run in a season. The reader moved to your shoulder. The silver of his lantern had softened. He spoke in a voice that did not carry to the walls, a voice meant only for a small circle of people who are standing close. Speak the smallest piece you can carry. Do not attempt to lift all of it at once. Your companion remained at your side, the stone still cupped in their palm. The figure waited behind you, the weight of a door in their posture. The bell did not ring. It allowed your breath to first move. You raised your head. The faces did not change. They did not lean forward. They did not pull back. The room allowed you to begin. I left because I was afraid, you said. The words landed without echo. The fog accepted them like water accepting rain. I left because I could not bear the bell, you said. I thought it would argue with me. I thought it would keep me where I stood. I was wrong. The bell did not argue. It asked. I did not know how to answer. The figure that wore your face did not blink. Their mouth did not move. Yet the weight in the room shifted. The rows behind them loosened as if many shoulders had allowed one small measure of rest. You gave another piece. I left because moving was easier when I did not carry anyone. I believed that if I set you down, I could return with enough strength to lift all of you. I did not return. I taught myself not to notice. You closed your eyes. A warm tide climbed your throat. You let it pass. When you opened your eyes, the first figure remained where they had been. In the fourth row, a hand rose. It was not a call for attention. It was a simple answer. The hand belonged to a face you barely remembered, a night at a door, a promise made quickly, a light left in a window. I am sorry, you said. You faced the fourth row. I am sorry to you. The hand lowered. The chair beside it straightened a little, as if wood had learned how to stand with less pain. The reader stayed silent. He did not count your sentences. He did not measure your progress. The lantern kept a steady breath of light and gave it without opinion. The figure near you, the one that wore your face, spoke at last. Do not dress it with other words. Tell us the plain reason. Tell us the one you have not said yet. You tasted iron. Your hands wanted to hide. The ribbon on your wrist warmed as if a small window had opened in your skin. I left because I wanted to be seen as someone who never leaves, you said. So I left quietly. I buried the leaving under work and distance. I wanted the appearance of constancy without the cost. For the first time, the ring of figures moved like a field of grass touched by a wind that has finally arrived. A soft travel of understanding passed from chair to chair. Not approval, not condemnation, recognition. The figure with your face nodded once. Now we can begin. Their voice did not strike. It set down a cup. The bell rang a single time. The sound was low. It did not throb. It moved through the room like a hand drawn across linen to smooth a crease. The rows behind the first figure settled. A new sound rose, faint but clear. The smallest tap of a chair leg against stone. Then another, then many. The room began to breathe. Your companion leaned closer. What happens now? The reader answered without turning his head. They will ask for what belongs to them. You will give only what you can speak without breaking. No more. No less. The first figure lifted a hand and pointed to the floor between you. The fog parted there, revealing a shallow basin cut into the stone. Water rested inside it, flat and dark. The first figure stepped aside so you could see the surface. Place a word here, they said. Place it the way you would place a coin in a plate that collects what is promised. Let it be a word you can return to without shame. You knelt. Your knee touched cold stone. The basin smelled like rain and old keys. You looked at the water and saw only the faint smear of lantern light. You searched for a word that felt like a door that opens without noise. Stay, you said. The water accepted the word with a soft sound that you felt rather than heard. A thin ring spread across the surface and reached the edge. A figure in the second row rose. Their face was blurred as the others, yet the way they held their shoulders felt familiar. They had waited at a train. They had counted the days with a calendar that had bent corners from use. Place another, they said. Place one that knows how to bend. You searched again. You did not force it. You let the word arrive of its own accord. Soon, you said, the water held the second word near the first. The two did not touch. They did not flee. They floated like two small boats on a still lake. The third request came from the fifth row, a smaller figure. Hands folded around a shape that looked like a book that had stayed shut for too long. Place a word that knows how to rest without falling asleep, they said. Listen, you said. The water glimmered in the lantern light. 3 rings moved outward and then lay quiet. The figure who wore your face stepped close again. You have given part of what belongs here, they said. You will return to add more. You do not need to finish. That is not the nature of this room. You rose. Your knees had taken on the chill of the stone. The ribbon warmed that chill out of your skin as if it had learned to be a small hearth. A sound moved through the rows, threads drawn through cloth. Small adjustments. People who had prepared themselves to remain in a hard posture, now allowing a little ease. A chair in the far distance creaked with a note like gratitude. You looked beyond the first rows. The fog thinned along a central aisle that you had not seen. Far at the very end, where the light failed, a dim arch waited. You could not see the door, yet you felt a draft that spoke of open air. The reader saw where your eyes had gone. That arch does not lead out, he said. It leads to a field where voices grow quiet. If you step through it now, you will not hear what else belongs to this room. If you wait, the field will wait with you. Your companion held the stone a little tighter. Their whisper brushed your shoulder. Can you go on? I can, you said, surprised to hear that answer leave your mouth without argument. The figure behind you moved to your other side. Their presence felt like a wall that would lean slightly if you needed it and stand firm if you did not. The first figure raised a hand. Their palm faced you. The gesture did not ask for anything. It named the fact that you were standing in the right place. Then the first row stepped back as one and allowed the second row to come forward. A woman stood at the front of that row. Her face was the fog's work, soft and ungraspable. Yet when she spoke, the room remembered the sound of a kitchen and the small, crisp music of a crust breaking. You left bread to cool, she said. You promised to return before it lost its heat. You did not. I know, you said. I ate other food with haste. I never let it rest on a table. I did not look at the person across from me. I told myself that hunger had nothing to do with presence. What will you bring when you come again? She asked. I will bring time that is not guarded, you said. I will bring a chair that does not try to become a door. She nodded and turned her head slightly. A shape behind her set a plate down on a hidden counter. The sound was the sound that had followed you through many rooms in this town. It bound this room to the others. A young person followed her. The fog blurred their features until only the posture remained. They had waited at a window and counted until counting became a music that could not be stopped without sadness. I learned your promises as a song, they said. I sang until my throat was a path for air and not for words. I left notes folded under the same stone, you said. I believed that paper could stand in for a rival. I did not see that your song was built out of the absence of steps. The young person lifted their chin. They did not ask you for a word. They did not ask you for a plan. They stepped back. Their seat made a small easing sound. The fog lay down across their shoes and rested. More figures came. Some asked for nothing. They stood and let you see them and then returned to their chairs as if simply being looked at was the correct weight for this visit. Some asked for a sentence. You gave it. Some asked for a breath. You gave that too and found that one breath given with attention can be heavier than a paragraph said in a hurry. At some point, the bell rang again. The note traveled without force. It gathered all the given words and laid them along the edges of the basin, the way a careful person lays knives back in their drawer with the sharp side turned away from a searching hand. The reader lowered the lantern. Your companion uncupped their palm. The stone that read weight no longer glowed. It looked content to be a stone. The figure touched your shoulder and let their hand rest there, a brief wait. "You have given enough for now," they said. You looked back down the central aisle. The arch at the far end had brightened by the smallest measure, not an invitation, a fact. The field would be there when you wished to stand in a wind that did not carry voices. The first figure with your face stepped close for the last time in this portion of the room. Their eyes had not changed, steady, patient, exact. "You will return," they said. "I will," you answered, and you found that the word did not ask for proof. It felt like a ribbon tied with a knot that knows its own strength. The rows softened. Many sat. A few remained standing, not to block you, to keep you company until you chose your next place to stand. The reader turned slightly and lifted the lantern. The flame leaned toward the way you came, as if it remembered that doors lead both inward and outward. Your companion stepped with you. The figure moved at your back. The fog rose to your knees in a tide that did not tug. You left the basin with its 3 words. You left the chairs at rest. You left the bell to keep time with the room of clocks that you had touched earlier, as if the town liked to speak to itself through walls. At the threshold, the crooked door did not resist. It opened with the sound of a breath drawn after weeping and before sleep. The eastern street received you. The fog there had changed. It still coiled, but without hunger. It knew what you had given and adjusted itself around you, the way a blanket shifts when a person turns. The square waited ahead, lantern bright, well quiet, roofs watching as they do. Someone had lit the blue flame in the courtyard of the oven house. You could smell the clean edge of heat and the first slice through crust. The reader lowered the lantern. "Tea," he said. "Bread," said the calm voice from the courtyard that had once handed you warmth with a song of crackling. "Water," your companion added, and the way they said the word made it sound like a place where a person could sit. You glanced back at the eastern door. It did not pull, it did not push, it held and would hold. The figure touched the frame with 2 fingers. They glanced at you. "Next time," they said, "bring a word for yourself." You nodded. The ribbon moved with your pulse. The bell in the distance answered as if it had heard that promise and approved. You crossed the square. The well gave off a breath like a sleeping thing that shifts to make room for a body that has returned to the bed. The lantern tilted its flame to watch your steps without effort. A chair in the house of chairs scraped once, very softly, then fell still. You did not end anything. You did not begin anything. You stood in the clear space between both. And the town, pleased with that choice, settled around you like weather that finally knows its season.